फिर से करना है यार। All right. Yeah. So I think a lot of people has joined, and let's restart this thing. So yeah. So welcome everybody. In the fourth topic of this webinar series, the people who are new to this series, and let me just introduce the agenda of this webinar series and why we are having this. So these webinars are for Glific. Glific is an open source platform which is built on Elixir and React. Glific helps NGOs or the social sector organizations to talk to their beneficiaries at a large scale via WhatsApp. So, and what and we are building Glific from last 1 year now, and now we are very close to release the first stable version, which is 1.0. So as we are moving towards that, we are expecting a lot of outside contributions in the Glific and build the build the Glific community itself. So yeah, so that's where we thought about these webinars where we discuss all the various components of Glific and how we are doing everything in this project. So in the last webinar, we talked about the high level architecture of Glific and see where are all the what are all the components and where they are placed in that ecosystem. And today we will talk about the CI processes, that how we are making our code more solid, more usable, and the developer friendly. So yeah, yeah. So in today's webinar, I'll be more on my ID instead of these slides, and I'll show you all the things from there itself. So yeah, so first thing, the CI tools. I'm sure everybody knows about the CI tools and what the CI process is, but just in brief, CI tools help you to make sure that your code quality and all the project standards are there. Whenever somebody makes a PR or do some development there, these tool checks that yeah, the code has follows all the standards and the processes before merging into the master. So, and yeah, so first thing in the webinar or in the project or in any project to build the community and to make it easy for other developer to contribute is the documentation. And we put a lot of effort to make sure that we document everything and yeah, pretty understandable. So the first tool I want to talk about is the AX docs, that how we are generating the code documentation. So if I show you the code documentation, so our the complete Glific code documentation on the hex docs, and here you will find all the context or all the various components we have in Glific with brief info. If you go deep down further, you will get to know that what parameter this function required and what are the type of these function or the parameters. So yeah, so all these codes, I mean, we didn't write ourselves. EX docs help us to do that. And the way he generate the code, he just go to the line by line. He picks the module and then pick these specs, the function specs, and yeah, generate those codes. So that's the one thing AX is helping us. But yeah, as so to make another thing was related to this one itself. So to make sure that every developer or every person who is in the team is writing these specs correctly, we are using another tool which is uh, Doctor, Mix Doctor. So let's say if I just remove this spec and I run Mix Doctor. So yeah, I think something it will take some time, but what happens is that Mix Doctor give us a warning, or it doesn't. It failed the CI checks that your specs are not there. One or two functions doesn't have specs. So let's just wait and yeah. So yeah. So once the Mix Doctor says and tell you about that, okay, this these specs are not there. The you have to write those specs, otherwise you won't be able to create a PR on a successful PR on Glific, Glific repository. The next thing is that even if you write these these specs, there is no guarantee that you are writing the specs correctly. Correctly, I mean, if this value maybe maybe a map, array, or anything, and you just place it as string, right? So to check this thing automatically in the code, we are using another package which is called dialyzer. So yeah, so so dialyzer checks that all the specs you wrote and everything, those are correct, and the type checking is happening there. The correct type checking is happening there. So right now I talk about three tools. One is AXDocs, who is creating these the documentation based on these specs, and we are writing specs is making sure we are making sure that we are writing the specs by Mix Doctor, which is which is identify that the functions which are not covered with the specs, and if the specs are correct or the quality of specs is checking by the dialyzer. So that's where we are ensuring that okay, we have everything in place, and if you create a PR, there is enough checks that okay, you wrote the specs and you wrote the right type checking on every function. All right, let's check if it's run. No, it will take some more time. So yeah, so I talked about dialyzer, I talked about the doctor and the AX docs. And now the next thing I want to talk about is the Credo. What Credo does it? So let's say if you can see that we are using snake casing here, and what can let's say you create a new function called the wrong function with camel casing, and just define something like this. So what Credo will do is it will again fail the CI and tell you that this function convention is wrong, and this function should be a snake casing. I'll show you a demo in couple of minutes. But yeah, that's where Credo helps us. In other terms, like if you doesn't if you define just a variable called un unused var, or let's say if you define something like this here, and this variable is not used in this function, then even Credo checks. So all the linting checks are happening by Credo here, and it has a certain level, and we are running on the strict level where it will show you that if I go to some other module and In any case, if you import or alias something, so these should be sorted by alphabetically. I mean, these should be sorted alphabetically and everything. So at that level, Credo gives us the checks and the code. So once you start writing the test, you have to make sure that your the Credo will help you to make sure that you are following all the standards in this code. The all right. Next thing is Uh, the dialyzer and doctor helps us to make the documentation solid, and Credo helps us to follow all the linting and the conventions in the Glific directory. Next thing I want to talk about the coveralls all. I have talked about this in our previous webinar also, and what coverall do is it always shows us the test coverage, that how much test coverage we have, what are the functions which doesn't cover in the testing, and what are the other functions which require testing, and the quality of testing also. So coveralls helps us in that way. And yeah, the formatter is self-explanatory. The formatter is just format your code based on the Elixir, the standard Elixir formatting rules. So So these are the tools we are making sure. So when you start writing the code in Glific, and there are enough tools and the CI process which help you to follow everything, and yeah, and increase your chances to submit a PR in the project. So let me just check if it's done. No. So so these are the various tools, and we are keep adding these tools in the Glific project. But the one thing we thought about that. So if I just show you something. So if you want to run all these commands, let's say if you want to check everything, you can run for doctor, you can run mix doctor. For Credo, you can run mix Credo, right? For dialyzer, same, it's dialyzer, and same for the coverall also, like this one. So you need to run those commands individually and see where the CI is breaking. But in case you want to check, because there are a lot of commands and you tend to forget these things, we are using another package called checks, which gives us ability to include all the command in this file where we are mentioning all these commands. And now you just need to run mix check, and it will run all the CI, the complete CI process will view and gives you the error or the changes you need to make in your system. So yeah, I think that is pretty much it on the CI. So so we are still trying to add some more things that who will tell us how effective our codes are, where we are lagging, and the dynamic and load testing, etc. So we will keep adding the tools, but I think these are the enough tools which will help all the developers. So let's check if with this compile. Meanwhile, I can talk about a few more things. So if you go to the Glific README, you will see that apart from the code docs, we have two more documentation in place. One is the GraphQL API, and we are still finding out any tool or something who will wrote these API for us, but these documentation for us. But right now it's all manual process. But to publish these documentation, we are using Slate. So, and the way we manage in the code, uh, Yeah, so whenever we add we make any changes or we define any GraphQL API or any GraphQL API endpoint, we have to update these documentation here, which is manual process for now. So if you are working on any feature or you see any changes you need to do in the GraphQL API, you need to update these documentation itself. And to make sure that your documentation are coming up right, you can just check on GitHub or do some markup tool in your IDE itself. The last thing is the Slab documentation, which is also a manual process right now, and here we are adding all our feature documentation, that how you can use the flows, how can use the component, the collections, and how anybody can be onboarding, and yeah, various integrations. So these are for our users who use the system basically. But yeah, in case you want to understand some functionality and workflow, you can also use that. So yeah, finally the doctor runs, and I show you so like this. So it is showing that it's a 91% complete the specs thing, but there is one function which is not, which doesn't have the specs. So that's how Doctor works. And since the code has been compiled, I'll show you some more things like this wrong function. So if I just run its credo strict, hmm, yeah, somehow it's taking a bit more time in this, but normally our CI takes 5 to 6 minutes max in case you doesn't remove the cache and all to make the complete CI process. But yeah, I think now you can do, or you can connect with me directly in case you have more questions. But yeah, that's how the Credo thing works. So it will give you all the statement that okay, the blank line should be one. There should be a one empty row. There should be the parentheses in the code and all the linting process. And you can add as many rows as you want in this package. So that's how all the tools works, and you can try it yourself or just pull out the Glific repo and run the mix check. So yeah, I think that's it. And now we can go to the questions. Yeah, let me know if there are any questions. All right, I don't think. Okay. So in case if you have any question, you can reach out to me at pankaj@coloredcow.com, or you can pick us on Coloredcow or GitHub Zitri. We are also pretty open on Discord platform where you can ask all your questions. All right. Right. Bye everyone.